This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about. Real, honest, entertaining, live. DBL starts right now.
3, 2.
Thank you, Chris. Welcome to DBL. It's Wednesday, April 21st. I'm Tori here with Jeff and Al. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get started. It was a horribly tragic event that sparked a global movement for racial justice and police reform. So how did you all feel yesterday when you saw that Derek Chauvin was found guilty, like here on the New York Times, it says, on all counts of murdering George Floyd, and they put him in handcuffs, which I think is the correct visual to show. Al, how did you feel?
I don't even know if the word feel is appropriate, Tori, because it's probably what feelings did you have, because there's so many. Obviously, you're relieved that we can continue as a society, because I think a not guilty verdict wouldn't have just been a police officer going about his life. We would then all know that we are in basically a lawless society, at least for some of the population. So we did avoid that. We avoided more lives lost, which we know would have happened with probably protests and things going on for days, maybe weeks. You know, and then there's sadness that not only is this still a thing, not only am I a person that's a survivor of being assaulted by the police, but just also, like, I think about how many Thanksgivings his daughter will sit at without her dad across from her. I was sitting in the car for a half an hour with my daughter yesterday, just talking about volleyball, and strategy and like where she's going to line up and things, and just like that relationship will never happen. The cashier that called the cops on him will every single day at some point be thinking about why he did that. The young woman that recorded it. So there's so much trauma that the ripple effects are going to be felt forever, but at least there was some justice, and we all saw it for the first time in most people's lifetimes.
Yeah, and you brought humanity to that, which is important. And I think a lot of people look at cases or other things on television, and they don't even look at the aspect of humanity
Just a
anymore.
last name versus a last name.
Right, it's a click, and it's this, and it's that, and they give their opinion on social media and move on with their day. No humanity. So I appreciate you pointing that out, because it really touches me, and I hope the viewers at home. I'm never going to say what it's like to walk in a black person's shoes, Al. I'm never going to speak for the black community, but I think we could all, as a human race, say relief is what we feel today, right? We could all agree on something. We disagree on every topic we have, whether it be sports, especially politics. Are we all not relieved today about this, what happened yesterday?
That's such a good point, and I have to, as an visual person, again with this, for me, I was sort of like, my breath was released, but the second the handcuffs went on is what did it for me, and to see him physically restrained by the police and be taken away, perhaps forever, is when I broke down. So write us in. We do want to get...
What did you feel?
I felt like we had taken the smallest of baby steps. I know it's not justice, but I felt like accountability was heard. And since Emmett Till and all the way back on those landmark cases, and the Rodney King, we always got the wrong result, in my opinion. And finally, we got one right. That's how I felt. All right, now there's a lot of questions about what's next for Derek Chauvin. So we are going to give you an expert to answer some of those questions. Please welcome criminal defense attorney and legal analyst Sarah Azari. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. We all saw Derek Chauvin being led out of the courthouse yesterday in handcuffs, which I just mentioned. So where is he now? Talk to us about just where logistically he is now.
Good morning, one and all. Chauvin is in protective custody right now. He's in a special housing unit. And in fact, even after he's sentenced in about 8 weeks, he's ultimately going to be housed in a special housing unit. This is obviously, number one, based on the crime of conviction, which is second-degree murder. It's a violent offense. And secondly, he's a police officer. It's really, really unprecedented to see a police officer who puts people in prison to be in prison himself. So it's a danger to him. It's a danger to others. And so he has to be housed separately.
Wow.
All right. Appreciate you being here. And I'm glad you're here because you can help explain some of these charges that he was found guilty of. And what should we expect at his sentencing?
Okay, so look, this was a shotgun approach by the prosecution. They essentially threw the book at him with the charges. There are 3 different homicide charges, and he just so happened to be convicted of not one, but all 3. And however, at sentencing, it's like he did it, he really did it, he really, really did it. He's only going to be sentenced on the highest offense, which is the second-degree murder. His maximum exposure is 40 years. Under the Minnesota sentencing guidelines, he's facing 12 years. But then you have this idea of aggravating factors which will come in at sentencing. And those are that there were children present, some of whom testified at the trial when this murder occurred. The fact that he was a police officer and he so egregiously abused his authority. The fact that Floyd was a really vulnerable civilian in his, not just in his custody, but in his care, and he didn't render aid to him. That was just so cold-hearted. So all of these are going to work against Chauvin. The fact that he's a police officer, for a change, is not going to work in his benefit. It's going to work against him. But let's also remember, Tori said, maybe he'll go away forever. It's not going to happen. We have to gauge our expectations, right? I don't think that he's going to get just the 12 years under the guidelines, but he's also not going to get the book thrown at him with the 40-year max. He's going to get somewhere around 15 to 18 years is my guess if I were to speculate. And that's because of those aggravating factors. But remember that as a defense attorney, we also humanize our clients at sentencing. So mitigating factors will be important. So the idea that, we don't really know much about Chauvin as a person, right? He might might have something good that he's done, or something maybe that was not right with him, his health, his mental health. We get a chance to see maybe some of those factors as well. We also get to hear from victims with victim impact statements, his family members, his girlfriend, who are going to make emotional pleas to the judge to do the right thing and put Chauvin away for a long, long time. And then we're going to get the idea of hearing from Chauvin himself, which we haven't heard. He invoked his Fifth Amendment at trial. He's going to get up on the stand and deliver a remorse statement. I mean, at least I hope he does, because we're going to want to know that, not why this monster did this heinous murder, but more about how sorry he is, pleading for the court's mercy. But again, I think this boils down to somewhere closer to 20 years than the 40 years. And then let's also remember that, he gets good time, work time credits in prison. So he's never going to do the full term of his sentence. He's going to do a percentage of it.
So everything we're talking about right now is this case, how many years he's going to get on this charge. Are there any grounds for appeal in this case after it's all said and done?
Good question. So much like any defendant would with a murder conviction, we expect Chauvin to appeal the conviction and try to reverse it. But even if his appeal gets certified, meaning it would get heard, the odds of his success are slim to none. He's going to claim that the media coverage around this case was prejudicial to him. Well, guess what? He's not the first high-profile defendant who's been convicted and has said that. It's not going to fly. He's going to say that the judge's ruling denying his motion to move the venue outside of Minneapolis was inappropriate, and it was actually very appropriate because all the witnesses and the crime scene was in Minneapolis. He's going to say that Maxine Waters, Congresswoman's political statements, prejudiced the jury just before deliberations. Maybe that's enough to certify the appeal, but it's not enough to win the appeal. He might also say that the civil settlement given to the Floyd family was something that sort of implied guilt in the mind of the jurors. But again, we've seen this happen in cases like this where there's civil rights cases that are parallel to the criminal prosecution. And the fact that there was a civil settlement is irrelevant. Right. What the jury did was the jury took 10 hours and took the law and applied it to all that compelling evidence in this trial and came up with guilty, guilty, guilty. And that's it. So anyway, his appeal is not going to fly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really am wondering about these three remaining officers there who are also charged in the death of George Floyd. Talk to us about these three officers and what you think their future will be in terms of the legal aspect of this case.
Right. So this was this murder that was not done by, it was done by four bad apples, with Chauvin being the most rotten one. But these three officers were offered a plea deal early on, and they rejected it. And they took the wait and see approach to see what happens at Chauvin's trial. And what they've learned since is that it's not good news for them. Yeah. And that if they were to go to trial, there would be compelling evidence against every one of them, except one of them, I think, was a trainee of Chauvin, so he could claim that he was acting under Chauvin's direction. But nonetheless, I think what they're doing is they're having serious conversations with their attorneys, who then should have serious conversations with the prosecution and say, look, give our clients a plea deal. Most cases don't go to trial. Most cases get resolved by plea offers. And so in this situation, even though it's like better late than never, they've lost some leverage because now the state knows how good and solid their case is in terms of evidence, even against the other three. But they still get a better deal by resolving the cases against them, the charges against them, by way of a plea.
Yeah, I was thinking last night, three people who might have been just calling their lawyers to make some changes might be those three. Sarah Azari, thank you so much. You just gave us so much information that's relatable and understandable for joining us on DBL. You can pick up her book, Unprecedented, on Amazon or other bookstore shelves right now. Thanks for being here. Coming up on DBL, we're continuing the discussion about Derek Chauvin's conviction, and now we're going to share your comments. Plus, imagine this, being abandoned when you're just a few days old at the airport. One woman is sharing her emotional journey to find her birth mother decades later.
Closed captioning provided by
As more and more people get vaccinated against coronavirus, families are looking to travel. But they are running into one roadblock, a lack of rental cars. Let's connect the dots. Excited travelers trying to book a post-pandemic vacation are discovering rental cars are hard to come by, and when you do, it can be pricey. According to reports, when the pandemic hit, rental car companies were hit hard. To make up the difference, they sold off cars. Now that people are heading out again, there are not enough to go around. According to the experts, it won't be easy for rental companies to increase their supply. New cars are also in short supply as car companies deal with a semiconductor chip shortage. So now the big rental companies are trying to shuffle around their existing supply to get cars where travelers need them. Right now, that means warm weather states. So what can you do? At least one person who traveled to Hawaii posted on social media about renting a U-Haul truck when they couldn't find a rental car. But that is not recommended. If you're on a short trip, include more days in your search, which can reveal more options. Also, look beyond traditional rental car companies. Turo is a car-sharing service that lets owners rent out their vehicles, kind of like an Airbnb for cars. Connecting the dots, Michael Aaron, THV 11 News.
Welcome back to DBL. Everyone is talking about the historic guilty verdict yesterday, including you, DBL Nation. And we love sharing your comments. You're part of our show. We never pay you. We're sorry. Here's a few we found. First up, Samantha on Instagram writes, hopefully knowing the murderer Derek Chauvin is locked up will bring some peace to his family, including his 6-year-old daughter, although this will not bring her back her father. I think that's important to say that, like, people are like, justice. Justice would be, as Amanda Gorman, the beautiful poet, wrote yesterday on Twitter, that we still have George Floyd, right? That's justice. This is accountability. What do you guys think?
I think you're right. I think exactly. I think humanity is a big part of this, even though people are like, why do you keep saying that? You mentioned it. People don't look at things with empathy anymore, right? They just see the headline. They comment on it,
Right.
even though it's okay for you guys to comment on us, but then, isn't that ironic? But anyways,
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. You take the empathy and sympathy out of things, and you're just like reading a headline, and depending on your political background, it influences certain things, and it's not in this case. But I'm saying it's gotten crazy. We haven't stopped to think about, what about his family? What about that community? What about the people that weren't even directly involved, like the cashier?
I know. I think about him all the time.
Like you brought up a great point with that.
It's just, that's the thing, Jeff. You hit it right on the head, man. We hear a story. We have already decided our political ideology. We go to our sources, whatever websites we go to, we get the spin that they want to put on it, and then that's what it is. And we forget that we're talking about, what if this was like our friend Leo that works here?
Right.
And we had to listen to people say that he was a drug dealer.
Right.
Or something like that. Think about how insulting that would be, because you know he might be the nicest guy on the planet.
Right.
You know, but they don't care about that. Networks don't care about that. They're like, black suspect, here's what we say about them. Crazy white guy shoots up a store, here's what we say about them. And we forget that these are people that have mothers and fathers and sisters and girlfriends and husbands, and we've lost the humanity, and if we don't get it back, we're just going to start to see more and more of these, because they're just going to be stats to throw out to
They're
win
numbers.
an argument on Twitter.
Right.
And in Leo's defense, people don't know Leo at home. He's like the nicest,
no one could be
cutest
kinder.
person, walks around with a smile every single
Kindest
day.
person
That was
you
the
know.
example Al was giving.
Yeah.
Yes,
He's
the
the kindest
greatest
person I know.
Perspective for you guys at home.
All right, next, Nikki on Instagram says, never have I cried so much for my people than in the last year and a half. My only question is, what would this have happened if it weren't for that brave young girl who filmed it, Darnella Frazier? I want to bring her up. She got definitely tortured by people saying, why didn't you jump in, interact? And I've got to say, her piece of evidence was so crucial that she stood there and documented that forever. Her video it was the clincher. That was it, a clear shot of what went down. I've got to say she's enormous in the civil rights movement. Enormous. We can't forget her. What do you think, Al?
Yeah, I mean,
you can't.
We have these ideas of like what a hero is and what they look like, and they always have muscles and, you know, a cool gun attached to their thigh. That's a hero.
Exactly.
To do that and then go through what she went through, being attacked on Twitter for filming it, being attacked on Twitter for not doing anything. Real heroes are just us. They're regular people that do something amazing, and because of that, she has changed the course of this case forever, and hopefully maybe reimagining police reform.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. All right, Delvar on Twitter says, this is accountability, not justice. I don't think this is a time to celebrate at all, not until true police reform and accountability is the law of the land. Jeff, a lot of people bringing this up, that it should be not celebratory. I felt there was some type of victory, at least, for a rare rebuke of police abuse. So I felt some kind of way, but do you think celebratory or celebration should not be a part of this at all?
I think it should. I know, I understand why you're saying that, and I use the word relief, but I think it's okay to celebrate, right? You got to take those small victories, as small as you said they were, you got to take those victories and build off of that, right? And whether it be as a person or a community. Absolutely.
Well, stick with us because we'll be right back.
Nearly 110 million people.
Researchers have shown teenagers should get about 9 hours of sleep a night, but thanks to school and social demands, that doesn't always happen. The problem is even worse for teens with ADHD, who report lower quality sleep than their counterparts. In fact, doctors used to think sleep deprivation could be to blame for ADHD. Now a researcher at Cincinnati Children's Hospital has done a study on students, half with ADHD, half without. 20% of kids with ADHD got less than 7 hours of sleep on school nights. In the other group, that number was 10%. That lack of sleep was associated with lower test scores for both groups. So what can parents and teens do? Keep beds for sleep only. That helps train the brain to associate going to bed with going to sleep. Also keep a strict bedtime routine. That helps all teens, but especially kids with ADHD. The study's author even suggests teachers to keep an eye out for sleepy kids so they can alert their parents if there's a problem.
Welcome back to DBL. 4 decades ago, Elizabeth Hunterton was abandoned at an airport when she was just a few days old. Imagine that. The former Miss Nevada was adopted by 2 white parents, but never knew her real birth date. Even her race was a mystery. I spoke to her earlier about her amazing journey to find her birth parents. Have a look at this story. Elizabeth, thank you for being here. Welcome to DBL. We are so excited to hear your story. Let's just start at sort of the crux of it. At what age did you learn about being abandoned at an airport, and how did that psychologically affect you? I can't even imagine. Tell us about that.
It was all I knew. I honestly thought that's where all babies came from. Wow. I thought that's where the storks landed, and I had created like this whole story, and I believed that until 7th grade when I was in anatomy class and got into like this all-out debate with my teacher. That was when I found out that not all babies come from the airport.
I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but you sort of saved yourself with that type of defense mechanism, thinking that happened to everyone. Once you found out in 7th grade in that anatomy class, what did that do to you mentally? Anything, or were you perfectly okay?
You know, that was one of those moments I just kind of had to reconcile and figure out what that meant. And then that kind of became I think the starting point for a pretty harmful narrative, because I started wondering what I could have possibly done, you know, at 10 days old that would have been so awful that would result in me being left, and kind of try to fill in the blanks for myself over the next 30 years.
Yeah, right? That's not easy. Now, talk to me about trying to find your birth parents. What was that like? Because I'm imagining I'm you, and at some point I go to anger. Did you want to confront them? How did you deal with that?
I never had anger or resentment. My mom had always raised me to have gratitude, acceptance, and compassion. So I never really had a space of anger toward them. And when a private investigator contacted me to find my birth parents, he said it was impossible. I didn't have a birth date, a race, a location. I didn't even know what decade, because I was left in the beginning of January 1980. Wow. So I could have been born in the 70s. I could have been born in the 80s. And so the private investigator was like, when we sent all our records over to Asia to be put on discs, we separated all the medical records by decades. So in order to find that 3 to 4 week window that you may have been born, assuming you were even born in a hospital, we would have to pull the records from everywhere in the world. For all of the 70s and all of the 80s, it's impossible. You couldn't find it. And I remember I told the investigator, I said, well, it's not like I was left in a rice paddy. And he said, that would be better. We would know you were from a 17-mile radius.
Wow.
And so I had given up because I didn't know that was an option for me. And then I did 23andMe, and that changed everything.
Tell me about what you learned about her. Like, what was that about, or your story? What was meeting her like? Tell me about everything.
I went through 5 potential biological mothers, all of whom have shaped my life and transformed my identity in different ways. Biological mother number 2, she was the second possibility. And she really kind of rewrote my narrative, because she said, unfortunately, I'm not your biological mother, but I hope your biological mother is as proud of you as you deserve her to be. And if she's not, I'm here.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually got to meet biological mother number 2 last month, who she really changed my narrative, because she made me think that maybe, just maybe, I'm not the worst thing that ever happened to somebody.
Right.
Maybe I'm not somebody's biggest mistake. And then when I did finally find my biological mother, she confirmed I wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to her. She just knew that she couldn't care for me the way she thought I deserved. And so she gave me to her roommate, who she thought took me to an adoption agency. And when she found out that that was not what happened, it took a toll on her. And me reaching out to her has given her permission to heal. And she's, forgiving herself and giving herself permission to live her life. So it's pretty beautiful.
Wow. You are such an inspiration, and I'll be thinking about you for a long, long time. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Elizabeth. Seriously, thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by
By now, you've heard the charges against Officer Chauvin, and so all eyes will now be on sentencing. Here in the Verify team, we want to make sure that we have the facts. Our sources are a pair of Minnesota legal experts, Rachel Moran and Rachel Polos, both from the University of St. Thomas. First, here are the max sentences: 40 years for second-degree murder, 25 years for third-degree murder, and 10 years for second-degree manslaughter. But our experts emphasize that these can't be stacked, meaning that the absolute max sentence is 40 years. But Minnesota law uses something called presumptive sentences, which sets a typical range of penalties for those with no prior convictions, in this case between 10.5 years and 15 years. And the only way to give a higher sentence than that is if there are so-called aggravating factors.
The aggravating factors, a few of them are present in this case. One of them is whether children were present for the crime. Another is whether the defendant was in a position of authority and abused that authority. A third relevant one is whether the victim was in a vulnerable position.
Now, we should note that Chauvin waived his right to have a jury look at those factors, so it's going to be up to the judge, Peter Cahill. Last important factor: our experts tell us that under Minnesota law, 2/3 of a sentence is served in prison, the rest under supervised release.
The judge, of course, could impose a higher sentence than the guidelines suggest, but he can't change that 2/3 rule.
With your Verify, I'm Evan Kozlov.
DBL.
I'll just be really 100. We always pull the curtain back on this show.
The most diverse team of voices in daytime.
You know I love you, and I feel that.
We're known for our authentic take.
Well, I'm thrilled about it.
I can't.
Yeah. You aren't shocked.
Have you guys all gone insane?
And no holds barred approach.
And that's the problem that we're talking about.
Get real.
On what everybody is talking about.
You just gave me chills. Thank you for that. I feel like you just spoke for every single viewer that is watching right now.
Welcome back to DBL. It's time for Security Alert, sponsored by LifeLock. Now, the Federal Trade Commission wants you to be aware of the so-called grandparent scam. It's an old trick, and it's making a comeback. Basically, scammers are calling the elderly and pretending to be their grandchildren. The crooks tell them they're in trouble and they need cash. They even tell the unsuspecting victims not to breathe a word of it to other family members. Victims have reportedly left cash at their front doors or wired money. Remember to think twice when it comes to these calls and always let your family know. When it comes to your financial assets, LifeLock is here to help. LifeLock keeps you and your digital identities secure from cyber criminals. Call 1-800-439-9017 or visit lifelock.com to learn more. That is sick.
How do you sleep at night?
How do you deal with yourself? Ugh. DBL's new every day. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Bye, guys.